The university recognizes that the fear of potential disciplinary action might create a barrier to or inhibit students from seeking emergency medical assistance for themselves or others when alcohol overdose is expected or suspected. In order to remove the barrier, the university has instituted the Alcohol Medical Emergency Call for Help, AMEC. Under the AMEC program, students who have sought emergency medical assistance for themselves or others will not face formal disciplinary action from Student Judicial Services in the Office of the Dean of Students. Here's how it works. Student calls 911 when alcohol overdose is present or suspected. Involved students will refer to SGAS. Students will be evaluated for inclusion in the AMEC program by SGS. Student eligible for the AMEC program will still be required to participate in the educational component and may be referred for an individual consultation. However, they will not face formal disciplinary action. Students in the AMEC program who decline or fail to attend the educational component or fail to comply with the counselor's recommendations will become subject to formal disciplinary action. There are limitations to this program, and inclusion in the program is not automatic. Call SGAs if you want more information. For the most part, you're probably familiar with state laws prohibiting underage drinking, public intoxication, driving while under the influence, and possession of illegal drug, among many others. Nonetheless, underage and impaired driving, as well as other misbehavior related to heavy drinking, such as public intoxication, sexual and physical assault, continue to be the most frequent kinds of violations on college campus across the country, including UT. Impaired driving is particularly problematic because of the potential for harm to others and death. Although over 70% of UT students reported using a designated driver after partying, there continues to be tolerant attitudes permissive of drinking and driving. Another common issue found among students is picking the wrong person to be the designated driver. Finally, another unfamiliar issue in the legal system is the affirmative link. It is a misperception that the police need a smoking gun or to see you with alcohol in your hand for them to cite you for a violation. However, state laws allows an officer to cite a minor for possession and other violations even if the alcohol spilled on the ground long before the officer climbed out of the patrol car. The officer simply must prove an affirmative link between the minor and the alcohol. Here's the list of recommended ways we can reduce our risk of alcohol becoming a problem for an organization. First, if we have alcohol present at an organization event, we should hire a third-party vendor. Another very effective tool is checking the identification of all of our members and guests to prevent service to minors. In addition, avoiding the use of common or self-serve containers, hiring a bartender to make drinks or bottles of beer helps to control and track the volume and concentration of alcohol and drinks served. Another common sense approach is having real food and non-alcoholic beverages available. They provide an alternative to drinking only. Also promotes other behaviors such as alternating non-alcoholic drinks with alcoholic drinks and eating the meal before drinking to reduce how much a person drinks. Calling the Austin or UTPD are always options for help if something gets out of control. Planning ahead to have a variety of safe rides home is an added benefit. Letting friends and guests walk home can be a hazard, although a person is not drinking and driving and lead to arrest for public intoxication. So use taxis, take the e-bus, or use a designated driver. Finally, the university program requires each of us to complete Alcohol EDU, an online alcohol prevention program. The program helps reduce your and our organization's risk by avoiding the common hazards related to alcohol misuse and abuse. To learn more, go to the website above. The following section will discuss the issue of sexual assault. Sexual assault is an umbrella legal term that describes a variety of sexual violations, including but not limited to rape, attempted rape, and sexual abuse. These violations can happen between any two individuals regardless of their gender identity, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, ability, and/or religious identity. The roots of sexual assault lie in one person's need and/or desire for power over another person. Sexual assault is never about love or attraction. It is instead about control and domination. This is best done by first establishing a working definition of sexual assault. Sexual assault occurs when a sexual act is directed against another person when that person has not consented, is incapable of consenting, or when an act is forced. You may notice in this definition that it includes a lot about consent. What do we mean when we talk about consent? Synonyms for consent include agreement and permission. In the context of sexuality, when someone gives consent to a particular sexual act, they are giving their agreement and/or permission for that act to occur. Consent is an active term, meaning that it involves the actual saying of yes and not just the absence of no. In order to consent to be present, the person giving consent has to truly feel that they have a choice in the matter. They can say yes or no freely without negative consequence. In line with this, therefore, consent can only happen when two people share equal power. It is also important to note that consent is negotiable for each stage of intimacy. Saying yes to kissing does not mean saying yes to sex. While alcohol is the most frequently used drug to facilitate sexual assault, there are numerous others that can be easily slipped into someone's individual drink or into a group drink that is not being monitored. These drugs can include GHB, prohibinol, and ketamine. Each often affect memory and the ability to control one's limb and body. The use of any of these drugs to facilitate sex with someone constitutes sexual assault. Whether hosting an event or on or campus or attending one out in town, it is important to watch your drink at all times and remain alert to changes in taste or visual appearance of your drink. If you suspect that your drink has been tampered with, throw it out immediately and notify someone of your concern. This risk reduction strategy includes having someone designated to monitor and control the distribution of alcohol at student organization events, establishing an organizational culture that does not tolerate sexually predatory behaviors and holds the offenders of such behavior accountable with tangible consequences, and intervening when you observe coercive or questionable behavior. Attending functions, parties, etc. with at least one other person that you trust, agreeing in advance that you will arrive together and leave together, and look out for each other while at the function. So, we just read that one. So maintaining control of your particular drink. If you choose to drink at an event, if you set your drink down or it is out of your control, in any period of time, throw it out and get a new one. Beginning and continuing dialogues about these issues. And having resources available about the risk of sexual assault and resources for survivors. So our next session is sexual harassment and sexual misconduct. And college students are susceptible more often than they may be aware. The following discussion points will give you a better idea of what constitutes this type of inappropriate behavior and how to respond if you are sexually harassed. The University of Texas at Austin is committed to maintaining an educational environment that is free from inappropriate conduct of a sexual nature through policies prohibiting sexual assault, harassment, or misconduct by any member of the university community. The prohibition of sexual harassment or misconduct extends to all activities of registered student organizations, regardless of whether or not the activity takes place on or off campus. So let's define these things. Sexual harassment. It is a form of sex discrimination that involves the imposition of an unwanted condition or requirement on the continued employment or education of the victim. Sexual harassment is against the law and a violation of university policy. Sexual misconduct is conduct of a sexual nature that, although not so serious or pervasive that it rises to the level of sex discrimination or sexual harassment, is unprofessional and or inappropriate for the educational and workplace environment. So where does sexual harassment occur? All over campus. Sexual harassment can occur anywhere on or off campus. It is not confined to a particular location. The number of incidents at a location reflects the amount of time students spend there. Among students who have been harassed, 39% were in dorm or student housing, 37% were outside on campus grounds, 24% were in common areas of campus buildings, 20% were in classrooms, 27% were someplace else, 12% were unsure where they were harassed. So though it is less common, sexual harassment of students by faculty and staff members is still an issue. Almost 1/5 of students, that's 18%, say that faculty and staff often or occasionally sexually harass students. Student-to-student harassment is the most common form of sexual harassment on campus. More than 2/3 of students say that peer harassment happens often or occasionally at their college, and more than 3/4 of students who experience sexual harassment have been harassed by a student or a former student. If you have been subjected to sexual harassment, to sex discrimination, sexual harassment, or sexual misconduct, confront the offender, a student may at any time personally confront the individual whose conduct is offensive, unwelcome, or intimidating. Explain that the conduct is offensive or makes you feel intimidated or uncomfortable and ask that it stop. Make sure that your message to the individual is clear. However, if the previously mentioned action is not feasible or successful, or if a student feels uncomfortable taking the above approach, the options described below are also available. Report it. It is important for persons who believe that they have been subjected to inappropriate conduct to report it and get help to protect themselves and others from unwanted sexual attention and advances that may interfere with academic opportunities and performance. Sexual harassment and misconduct are both taken very seriously and will be addressed immediately by university officials. So let's discuss how to report this. UT encourages students who believe that they may have been subjected to sexual discrimination, harassment, or misconduct by university faculty, staff, student visitors, or contractors to report it immediately. The contact information for Dr. LaToya Hell and Linda Millstone is right there up there. So our next section is fire and life safety is a topic that is often overlooked by student organizations despite the fact that emergency involving these items can have grave consequences. Here are some tips and advice on how to avoid putting you and our organization in danger. Okay, the last thing we would expect in an event is for a crisis to arise. The best thing to do is to call for help as early as possible and utilize campus resources. Calling 911 from a cell phone will connect you with the City of Austin dispatch. Provide as much detail as you can and stay on the line with the dispatcher until they release you. To ensure the fastest response, have a friend call UTPD or make the call yourself in addition to 911. The Office of the Dean of Students can help with a variety of emergencies, including fires that occur in residences, notifying professors of absences due to injuries, illness, or emergencies, and so much more. Hopefully we will have planned well and rarely ever to have to face this, but each of you should know that there is always help from the university.